God bless everyone, and I hope that this ministers to people and helps people the way that it should. God told me to make this video about 2 days ago, and it is my testimony. And my testimony is pretty much my whole life. So thank you all for listening in advance. Before I was born, I had a brother. I found out when I was in 3rd grade that I had a brother and that he was murdered by my dad. I remember before knowing that, I was asked by other kids, like, where's your dad and all this stuff, and I never had an answer because my mom never lied to me. So I didn't have like some fake story I could just tell everybody. When she did finally tell me, it broke me. And anger came in me. I was so angry, and I remember screaming and hitting the wall and just so upset. And then I told myself, I was like, you know what, I'm over it. And I thought I was over it. But that anger never left me. Growing up, I was such an angry person. I was always upset. The slightest thing somebody would say to me, I just snapped and I was just angry. Eventually, my anger became violent. And I remember hurting people, and I would always hurt people who were smaller than me and younger than me, and I was just angry all the time. And I would always feel sorry for myself when somebody would try and tell me about myself, and I was just so angry. Now, growing up, ever since I first went to school, so preschool, I think it started in preschool, either preschool or kindergarten, but either way, I was still young. But every single grade I went in, and every single school I moved to, it didn't matter what school I went to, it didn't matter who the kids were. On the outside, they looked different, but on the inside, they were the same. I was bullied at every single school, every single year. And I was always bullied with the same exact thing. You look like an alien, you look like a fish. And it was always my looks. And I never had friends. I was always friends with maybe one person, like an outsider or something like that. And for some reason, growing up, I was such a people pleaser. So I would literally be friends with my bulliers. I would cry about how badly they were making fun of me, and then I would chase them and try to be friends with them and be very close to them. And I never understood why I did these things. I didn't understand my anger. I didn't understand why I was being bullied. I didn't understand why I was such a people pleaser. And because of my people pleasing and just wanting to be nice to everybody, I gave in to a lot of things. I gave in to doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing with cousins and people who I didn't even know their names. I just gave in. All my life, I've been raised in the church. When I would go with my grandma and my mom, we would go to churches, and there was this one church that we went to that was all day, all night. And I remember my grandma's church. It looked like a castle on the inside. It was huge. And I was always going to church, but I never truly understood who God is. And I just, I knew of God, but I didn't truly believe. And I didn't believe until I was older. And I remember learning about the devil's kingdom and what he's doing in the music industry and in the governments and the news and all that stuff. And goodness, I think I was in high school, and I remember my mom telling me all of that. And then she also told me, because I was upset with her, that she moved us so far away from the family. And I didn't understand. I was like, why? Like, I miss my grandma. Like, I want to go back. And she finally told me, she said, your grandma tried to kill you your entire life. And I remember thinking of that, and thinking of all the time she tried to kill me. And then I remember thinking, like, how did she not be able to? And that's when it hit me. I was like, first of all, if the devil's real, obviously God's real. And God helped me not die from all the things that my grandma tried to do to me growing up. And I remember just seeing it. I saw like a vision of everything that she tried to do to me, things that I made myself forget because I was such a people pleaser. I loved my grandma, and I tried my best to make her love me because I knew deep down that she didn't. And it's hitting me now as well. Being such a people pleaser, I was always trying to please the people who didn't love me. So that's another reason why I kept my mom away growing up, because I knew she loved me, so I didn't have to please her. So I would push my mom away every once in a while. Like, we grew up very, very close, but every once in a while I would just, go off and, like I said, like I wanted to be my grandma instead, because I felt like there was work that needed to be done. I felt like I needed to get her to love me more. I remember sitting there at night with one light on and just all of this hitting me and me realizing God is real. And then that's when I realized, all my life I didn't think God was real. I thought I knew he was real until right then. That's when it really hit me. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I started to cry. And I remember just thinking, like, God is real. But that's the thing, like, there's milestones when it comes to following Jesus. First, you need to believe, and that's what I did. But that's where I messed up, because that's all I did. I was like, yeah, I believe there's Jesus. I believe God. I believe the Holy Ghost. I believe in all of that. So, okay, I believe. But I didn't act on faith. I had faith, but there was no work. And I think it was probably like 10 or 11. I think that's when I really started like rebelling against my mom. And I didn't understand until years later that the reason why I was constantly rebelling against her as well, besides the fact that she loved me, was also because her spirit and God was getting closer and mine was getting further, and our spirits were attacking one another. And so the closer she got to God and the farther I got, we were constantly neck and neck. And I remember just so many times, every single time she would bring up God, I would just like not want to hear. And yeah, I had that revelation, God's real, but I still didn't truly worship him. So my spirit wasn't getting closer to God. So since I wasn't getting closer to God, I didn't want to hear anything about him. During Sabbath, all I cared about was the music, because it was just fun to sing and dance. The food. But I didn't care about the real reason of why we were celebrating Sabbath or reading the Bible or anything like that. And I remember we would read the Bible and I would just remember that little part. So I would skim it, and then I would like just like try and think of something that I could like summarize it, because that's what we would do. We would read the Bible and then we would all like summarize, like not summarize, but we all like explain what passage we read. So the way that I would explain it, it was just like you could, I don't know, like I skimmed, you can tell, like I skimmed, and I just I just reworded. That's what I did. I reworded the Bible. I didn't really like explain. So I just like reworded it to make it look like I was really paying attention. And as soon as we would like get to like the Bible part or like the really like God part of Sabbath, all of a sudden I would get tired. I would get extremely tired. And then finally, like, my mom was like, okay, fine, go to sleep. And as soon as I got into my room, I was wide awake. I literally had to force myself to go to sleep sometimes. And sometimes while I was wide awake, I would just, play on my phone, do something. Or I would just lay there, because sometimes I did feel like super convicted. I was like, I don't want to do anything like playing video games or listening to worldly music on Sabbath. And I didn't understand why I didn't want to do that stuff, but I still, as soon as I got to my room, I was wide awake. And I remember one night I went to my room and I did actually fall asleep, and all of a sudden my door opened. I wasn't 100% asleep, but I was like falling asleep, and I remember my door just opened, and I wanted to like not say anything about it, but eventually I was upset because I was like, who just opened my door and just left it open? So I got up and I went to my mom and was like, Mom, why did you just like open my door and leave it open? She was like, I didn't do that. And she said, I'm glad that you're up here, because I feel like God is telling me to wake you up and tell you to get up here. And so I went up there in the living room where we celebrate Sabbath, and we continue to celebrate Sabbath. And that wasn't the first I had like a encounter with the Lord. There was another time, and this actually like really hurts me a little bit, because it's sad how far away from God I was to not feel God's presence. And what happened was, God went to my mom's room first, told her he would come to my room. He came to my room and I was asleep. I remember it was daytime and I was asleep, and I felt him sit on the edge of my bed, and I thought it was my mom. So I started kicking the area. I was like, get off my bed. And I was literally kicking what I thought was my mom. Like, how sad is that, to think that I'm kicking my mom to get off my bed? And I didn't want to get up. And finally, like, I'm literally kicking the Lord. That is ridiculous. But finally, I went over to my mom's room after. I was like, Mom, why were you just sitting on my bed? She was like, that wasn't me. And I remember her saying, like, you need to go and pray and ask for forgiveness. And I don't even remember if I actually did sincerely in my heart. I think I just was like, oh Lord God, I'm sorry. But I don't think I sincerely was like, please forgive me. I'm sorry. There was another time, and I remember this time it was the worst feeling in the world. My mom was asleep and so was my sister, and I wanted to listen to some worldly music. I wanted to dance, and I remember going in the living room, putting in a headphone, and I would always dance in a way that I could like see if my mom got up, because obviously listening to worldly music was not okay in our house, but I did it anyways. And I remember I was dancing and I literally felt the Holy Ghost. I felt Jesus. I felt God. I felt all of everything. I felt the angels. I felt everything of God leave the room. And it was the most scariest thing I ever felt in my life. I remember I ran to my room and I hid under the covers, and I remember thinking like, I'm literally hiding. And I knew God left me. I was so scared. And I felt just evilness coming. As soon as God left me, I felt like I was surrounded by demons, and it was the scariest thing. And to make matters worse, even after that experience, I still continued to live in sin. I continued to listen to my worldly music and watch my worldly shows, and I didn't fully understand. Like, I knew God loved me, but I don't know. I don't know what was going on in my head. I just continued to live in sin, and it was awful. So fast forward a little bit. My senior year was the only year I didn't get bullied. I remember that. I remember people trying to bully me in my senior year, and it just didn't work. I remember telling myself, I was like, oh, I'm not getting bullied because I'm finally focusing on myself and I'm not focusing on anybody else. Like, you know, focusing on my schoolwork, and I'm getting straight A's, because growing up, like, I would get C's and D's because I was too focused on pleasing everybody else. And so when I went to college, I went to a Christian college. My bullying started right back. I met a guy, and literally like the first day of school I met him, and we started dating like the third day of school, I think. And we were in sin. More like with him, it wasn't more of a people pleaser problem with him. It was more of I didn't want him to fully leave me because I liked the attention I was getting. And I remember him and I were on and off like crazy. But the reason why we were constantly on is because I didn't want to fully let him go. I always thought it was the opposite, because like I caught him almost cheating on me. He's texting someone that he wasn't supposed to, and I remember him crying like crazy, and I was like, you know what, fine, I guess we can stay together. I could have said no. I could have walked away, but I didn't, because I wanted to be with him. I didn't want to. I wanted that attention. I wanted that, I wanted somebody there. And me living in sin with him was awful. And that pulled me even further from God. My bullying started back up, and I was getting literally threats on my life because he was going back behind my back, talking mad crap about me and just dragging me to the ground, and people were believing him, and he was telling people that I was abusing him and I was doing all this bad stuff to him, and I wasn't. And then every single time we were off, he would talk even worse about me, and he would make people think that I was clingy about him, and in reality he was actually clingy on me. I mean, yeah, I didn't want him to like fully, like, I didn't want to break up, but I wasn't clingy on him. Like, I had a job. I was getting straight A's in college, and it was a full-time job and a full-time college student. Like, I didn't have time to be clingy on this guy. But he lied about me, and it was awful. So I got bullied so badly, and I didn't understand why. And then finally somebody told me, like, years later. They were like, yeah, he would come in our room and he would cry about you and say all this stuff that you were doing to him. And I was like, what? That's not real. But anyways, so eventually I didn't have any friends that weren't friends with him. I think I had one or two. So I knew that if him and I completely broke up, I wouldn't have anybody except for those two people. And I don't think I realized that those two were my friends, like my true friends, until like years later again. But I don't know. I felt like, I was like, if him and I break up, I'm gonna be completely alone. And I didn't want that, so that's why I kept allowing him to talk bad about me. And I knew he was talking bad about me, but I allowed him to. And I allowed myself to fall into sin with him. And now my spiritual level with God is completely gone. So obviously, living with my mom, whose level was higher in God and mine was like gone, we were even more neck and neck. We were constantly arguing. And I would challenge her in public. I was always trying to like be independent. I thought I would tell myself like that's why we were neck and neck, because I'm independent and she's independent and we just have our own opinions. But no, in reality, the reason why we were neck and neck is because our spiritual level was just not there. And I was living in her home and I was not doing the things that she told me to do. She told me to get up and clean and I didn't. And I was upset, and I would argue, and I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm a full-time student. I'm a full-time like work. I'm tired. I'll get to it tomorrow. And I never did. And so I remember it was Halloween night, and I got home from work, and it was enough. Enough was enough. My mom and I were arguing, and it was done. So I left that next morning, lived on campus, and that is when a dream that I had came true. And I don't know if my mom ever posted this dream. If she did, then I'll put it in the description box. But if she didn't, just real quick, that dream, I was at a college full of drinking and partying and sin, and first I was okay with it, and eventually I wanted to leave, and I left, and I went on this path, this very narrow path, and at the end of the path there was a older man, and there was beautiful snow. And I remember being so happy. And when I left my mom, that's when I went to that college. And I was fully like into that college. And that's when I like noticed all the partying that they had going on. And I'm not living with my mom anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm not celebrating Sabbath anymore. And that's when I really saw like this so-called Christian college was literally like another high school. And they were just partying every weekend, every single weekend. And then they would go back to a Christian college like they didn't just party and drink and smoke. And I will never forget one of the parties, like, the cops were called. So all of us underage people, we had to hide. Anyways, my grades went from straight A's to straight D's and F's. Literally, like, I was at the end, like, it was the second quarter. We were at the end of this trimester, and I didn't do any of my finals. And if anybody who went to college, you already know, you fail that last final, that's like 80% of your grade. So I went from an A to a D instantly, A to a F instantly. Like, all of my grades went down. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just continue and do the second trimester. But once I got to the second trimester, I was like, I want to get out of college. But I didn't know I could drop out in the middle of college. I don't know. So I just like, I'm going to just wait until the end of this year and then I'll leave. But I literally, like, stopped going to my classes, stopped turning in classwork. Like, I just stopped doing everything. And so here I am. Well, here I was. I already paid it off, but I was, like, paying a college that I didn't even go to. And then I dropped out, and the guy I was dating, he went back home for summer. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna break up with him over text. And he was like, you know what, fine, whatever. And we completely, like, that whole on and off thing was done. And I was living alone. And then a couple months later, I started dating somebody else. And that's when I got into a terrible car accident. Like, it was awful. I was in the middle, and there was a truck in front of me. Not an 18-wheeler, but like a pickup truck. It was a pickup truck in front of me, and then there was a brand new car behind me. The truck in front of me stopped. I stopped. We were completely at stops. And the car behind me, her brakes went out, and she hit me full blown. I remember looking at my rear view mirror and being like, well, here it goes, because she was not slowing down. She hit me. My car went boom, 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 like front to back, front to back, front to back. And it was like, wow. It was really, really scary. And my car was completely totaled. And I remember where I got hit. It was in the middle, because, like, the guy I was dating, he was an hour away from me. And I remember I was 30 minutes out, literally in the middle. And I had the chance to either go back home or go to him. And I chose to go to him. And I remember I called somebody. I think I paid her like $60 to come get me and take me back home. And now that I think about it, why didn't I just go home in the first place? Because, like, him and I didn't even work out. So here I am, like, driving a whole hour to see him. Like, for what? And to make matters worse, when him and I didn't work out and I got my brand new car, I continued to drive that hour because I fell deeply in love with his roommate. And I remember me and his roommate were like secretly together, because we didn't want to tell him, because, like, bro code. And I remember, like, this dude treated me awful, like, very, very awful. And I don't know why I fell for him so hard. And I remember the last day we were together, and I remember when he, like, ended things with me. And he, like, ended things with me, and he said that I needed to grow more, and that he was my, like, template on the next guy I need to date. And then he told his friend about us, and his friend was livid. He was so upset. He threatened. He was like, I'm either gonna kill myself, or I'm gonna kill him, or I'm gonna come down there and hurt you. And I was like, what? Like, he was super, super upset. And then I find out later the reason why he ended things with me is because he actually started dating somebody else. And then he finally got his own car, so he was able to go drive and see her. And he literally admitted to me, he said, the only reason why I was with you is because you had a car and I needed a ride. Which didn't make any sense to me, because I was like, you're on a campus. You're telling me none of those people drove to this place, and I would literally drive an hour to him. Let's say like that was an hour north, and then I would drive 2 hours south past my house to the place that he wanted to go to, and then 2 hours back up north to drop him back off. When I tell you I was a people pleaser, I was a people pleaser. And I'm sitting here paying for my own gas to drive him 2 hours back and forth every single week. What is that? 4 hours every single week. And being with him opened me up to going to clubs. So now I'm going to clubs, and was really like, I was so far from God. I don't think I had opened up. I remember having my Bible, and I hadn't opened it up at all. I hadn't celebrated Sabbath at all. Not the feast. I don't even think I prayed over my food at all. Like the mention of God in my home was just not there at all. And he opened me up to clubs, and that opened me up to meeting this girl who I also was a people pleaser for, and she was a stripper. And I was like, you making money, so you know what, I want to do that. Now I never did it, but it's still like, maybe I was like, I mean, you know, she opens me up to doing it and I'll do it. But what she did open me up to was the idea of being a sugar baby, and you know, the idea of being an escort. And she taught me how to be a sugar baby, and she also taught me, like, if I wanted to be an escort, this is like what I can go through. So I was like, well, let me experiment a little bit with the whole sugar baby thing. And I remember meeting a guy, and finding out not even 2 weeks later, I think it was not even 4 weeks later, that I was pregnant. And I was so in sin that I met that guy that one day. Not even 24 hours later, I met another guy. So in reality, I actually did not know who the father of that baby was. And I was so in sin that the thought of abortion, it was like the thought of drinking water. Like it didn't mean anything to me. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just go get the baby aborted. And I texted one of the guys, and I was like, I'm pregnant, it's yours. And the reason why I told him it was his is because he made more money than the other guy, so I knew that he would pay for it. And I was like, yeah, get this done. Let's just get this done. And I remember him telling me, like, yeah, because if you and I aren't gonna like be in a relationship, then I can't help you like pay for the baby. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I've already decided that I want to get it aborted, and it is what it is. And so he paid for it, and then I never talked to him again. And during the period of me being like aborting the baby, I remember it lasted a whole month. Like, imagine having your cycle for an entire month. And I remember just like being in so much pain. I couldn't move. Like, I literally had cramps, and it was awful. And I was just like, it was crazy. And in the middle of all of this going on, I was also moving, because I was like, I don't want to be in this city anymore. The city that I was in, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. It's surrounded by my past, and every single time I go into Walmart, there's somebody I see that I know, that knows me, that is smiling in my face like they didn't bully me while I was here, and or they're smiling in my face like we're best friends when they sat there like a bystander. And I remember I was just so upset with this city. I eventually was just upset with the entire state. I was like, you know what? I hate this state. I hate it so much. I hate it. So I put everything that I could in my car. I think I drove back and forth at least twice or 3 times. And I moved to a different state. And I moved in with my uncle. Now my uncle is a truck driver, so he was only there like 1 weekend out of the entire month. And at this point, I think I was like 19, so I was living alone for at least a year. So moving in with someone, even though he was only there like 1 weekend out of the month, it still rubbed me like the wrong way. So I wasn't open, like I wasn't a hugger, I wasn't a, oh hi, how was your trip, like I wasn't a talker. So every single time he came home, I literally was just like out all night. Like I would go find a friend and be like, hey, can I just like sleep at your place? At one point I literally slept in my car because I was like, it was just awkward. Like I didn't want to be a family, I didn't want that. And so eventually my uncle was like, you need to get out. And I was just like, because he had texted me, it was before he like came home. When he had texted me that, I already had another apartment. Like it was already, like I was already signing the papers. Like I was like already gone. So I never even texted him back, I don't think. But I remember moving all my stuff out of there and coming to my new apartment. So I'm here at my new apartment, and this point I was super happy. I remember being super happy, and I was just like, I'm on my own or whatever. And for a year living in this apartment, the only furniture I had was my mattress and a TV stand, because I had a TV that I got for free from a raffle at my college. So, and I was like, I'm content. Like this is all I need, is whatever. And then I finally got like a bed stand, because I was like, I might as well, you know, get my mattress off the floor. And still I was like, this is all I need. It's just me. And I remember I met someone else. Now this guy treated me wonderful. I have never had someone treat me this great. Like he was amazing. And I remember having a dream about us having a family, and everything was fine. And alrighty guys, so just real quick, I just remembered that dream, and I actually remember telling him that it was him that I had the family with. But in reality, I manipulated that dream that I had because I don't know, I guess I just wanted to like lie to him and just make him fall for me even more. But the truth is, I did have a dream of me having a family, but it wasn't with him. All of a sudden, it was ripped from me. I remember he called me because we were supposed to meet up somewhere, and he left me, like he stood me up, and I was so hurt, and I think I was crying for like 2 days because I couldn't get a hold of him. And then finally he calls me back and tells me, I'm getting back with my ex and I need to completely cut you off for her. And I was like, you're really just gonna do that to me? Like you don't care? He said, yeah, I'm just gonna cut you completely off. I don't care that you're crying. And it hurt me even more because I've had somebody actually do that to me in my past. that person in my past actually looked, that person told me to my face, I was bawling my eyes out, told me to my face that they didn't care that I was crying. They only cared that I was a person that was crying, but they didn't care that I was crying and that they made me cry. And that is exactly what this guy did to me, and he did it to me over the phone to make it even worse. And I have not seen him since. Now that I think about it, I think God took me out of his life because I would have ruined him because I wasn't ready for that. Or God took us both out of each other's lives because we ended up starting to live in sin. At first we wasn't, and then we started to, live in sin, and it wasn't right. And I still wasn't at any level. I wasn't at any level with God at all. And I remember I cried for so long. I cried for a month, and I remember I was at home and I was crying so hard, and I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to go. I need to get out of here. And I literally, with the clothes on my back and whatever money was in my account, and it was during COVID, like when COVID first hit, so we didn't have work. And I was like, you know what? I just want to get out. I just want to get out of here. And I got in my car and I just started driving, and finally, I think after maybe 30 minutes of driving, or I think it was 5 minutes of driving, I finally was like, you know what? I'm putting my mom's address in my car. I'm putting my mom's address in my GPS. She had no idea that I was coming, but I drove back and forth from where she's at and where I live at now multiple times, and I would always have to stop and everything like that because it was a long drive, and it was also it was hard on me because I hated that state. I would literally sense when I went into that state, and I could feel it. I was like, I'm in this state now, and I would look around and I see the sign, welcome to that state. And when I drove to go see my mom, I didn't stop. I just kept driving, and I remember I did call people on my drive there, and I would call a couple of my friends, and I would be like, I'm scared because my mom has no idea that I'm coming. And I remember on my drive there, I started to have revelation. I started to realize I'm such a people pleaser, and I'm allowing these people in my life to hurt me because of my dad, because I haven't forgiven him. And I want love because of that emptiness. And on my drive there, I was just thinking about that, and I was like, that's why I'm hurting so much. That is why I haven't moved on from this guy, because I haven't moved on from this guy or any other guy, and I'm so hung up on my past because I haven't forgiven my dad. I haven't forgiven all the other people who hurt me. I haven't moved on. I remember showing up to my mom's door, and I remember knocking on her door, and she looked out her window, and she sat there and she looked at me for so long. I was so scared that she wouldn't open the door. And I remember she opened the door, and we didn't hug or anything. We just talked. And I remember finally I broke down and I apologized to her, and she hugged me. The thing is, I still didn't know the real reason of why her and I had a fallout. So the truth is, when I apologized to my mom, I only apologized because I knew that's what I thought that's what she wanted to hear. That's the only reason why I apologized. I didn't apologize because I was sorry. I actually wasn't. I didn't know why I was apologizing. I just knew I needed my mom. because I was hurt. And everything was the same, but the only difference is I knew how to manipulate the situation. And so we go out to eat, and I could feel like if I said something, we would argue. So I was like, I'm not gonna say that. I knew how to manipulate my anger. I still had my anger, but I knew how to hide it. So eventually I was like, I want to go. I want to get out of here. I want to go back home. Like, I just want to go. And I remember towards the end of my visit, she started taking pictures of me, and my mom will look at these pictures and she'll laugh because I wasn't smiling. Like, I was just like, you could tell I was irritated. But my mom would laugh at it because she thought I was joking. But she doesn't know that the truth is I was irritated. I wanted to leave. I was like, why are you taking my picture? Like, I want to go. Because my spirit was still not on a level. It wasn't on any level with God at all. So yeah, we were back together. We were back close. And she would bring up God. I didn't want to hear about it at all. Like, I didn't want to hear anything. Like, it was still the same. And I remember coming back to visit her for her birthday. And even then, I just wanted to leave. Even then, she would bring up God, and I didn't want to hear it. So a couple months later, that's when I met my daughter's dad. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but for some reason, I ended up blocking my mom off of everything. I ended up falling out with her again because of her dad, my daughter's dad. That pulled me back into partying, and this time I actually did start drinking. I remember like getting like really, really drunk, like my first time getting drunk, and I remember like not remembering anything that happened. Like, I was that drunk. I completely blacked out, passing out like crazy. It was even worse with him because he claimed that he was agnostic. He believed in some sort of God, but nothing else. So I was ashamed to speak about God. And I remember like before me and my mom had a falling out, I did sort of starting to get closer to God a little bit. I would write a scripture on a post-it note and post it up somewhere in my house. But I would never go back and actually read it. And dating someone who's agnostic and would always want to challenge, and I wasn't close with God, so I didn't know how to challenge. So that's why I was like, you know what, I don't want to challenge him on, you know, the scriptures of God. So I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to talk about God. I'm not going to bring up God. And he would like bring up the scriptures that I had written up there, and I was like, oh, it's just yeah. And I would change the subject. And a couple months later, I find out I'm pregnant. It was almost exactly a year from my abortion that I had. And I remember thinking, this time, because that abortion, like, it took months later, but then when every single time somebody would bring up abortion, or every single time somebody would bring up like a stillbirth or any form of dead baby, I felt my abortion, and I was so sad, and it hurt me so badly. So when I found out I was pregnant, absolutely not. I was not having an abortion. I was like, there is no way. Like, I'm not doing that at all. I'm not doing that, because at the end of the day, it's not my child's fault for being born. It's not her fault that she was conceived. So why would I kill her? And it wasn't her fault. It's my fault. And that's a consequence that I have to deal with. I was so happy when I found out I was pregnant. I don't even know why I was happy, because I wasn't married, and her father and I had our issues. Him and I weren't even like official. Like, he would always throw in my face that we weren't together. He's like, don't forget, like, you and I aren't together, so I can do whatever I want. Like, I can date whoever I want if I want to. He never did, so I was just like, okay. And him and I were always arguing as well, and having issues as well. And then, like, towards the, like, before I found out I was pregnant with her, we started to get better. Like, there was no arguing. Like, we were good. And I found out I was pregnant, and I was just so happy. And I told 2 of my friends first. I didn't tell my mom right away, because obviously I'm not married. But I knew I wanted to tell her right away. I knew I wanted to tell her, like right away. But I was like, I already told 2 people before I told her father. So I was like, let me tell him. Well, I told her dad, but let me tell him first. And I remember telling him, and I was like, I'm a very chill person. So I was like, I mean, if you need some time, you can take your time. Take your time if you need some time. It's perfectly fine. And then I was like, if you don't believe it's yours, you want a DNA test, you can, because like you say, you and I are not together. And he said to me, he was like, I believe that she's mine because I've never had somebody love me as much as you do. So I know that she is mine. And I was like, okay, well, now that I told you, I want to tell my mom. He's like, don't tell her right away. Like, let's just wait until after the first trimester, if everything goes well. And I'm like, no, I want to tell my mom. I'm not gonna sit here and assume the worst. Like, why would you even think that way? Like, let's wait and see if everything goes well. No, I'm about to sit here and be like, everything is going well. I'm going to tell people. Like, obviously, like, my boss just sent me home because he thought I had COVID. I don't have COVID. So they're gonna realize, like, I'm pregnant. Like, I want to tell people because I'm happy. And he was like, fine. He was like, fine, you can tell your mom. And I think I told her, like, I think it was a couple days after finding out, he finally gave in, let me tell her. And then slowly, like, everybody at our job found out. And then all of a sudden, him and I started having issues. And when I say issues, I mean, like, he just went ghost. Like, he stopped talking to me. And I was like, what's going on? So I'm upset myself. Like, where are you? I'm not feeling well. Like, I'm super, super sick. It's very hard for me to do things. And I really don't want to go back to work because, like, I'm afraid to be lifting things and all that stuff. Like, I'm really hurting. Like, I remember I was hurting very badly and I was really not feeling well. And I worked at a warehouse at the time, and going up and down the tower, like, I would feel so lightheaded and sick. And all of a sudden, he tells me that he wants absolutely nothing to do with me. He said, I want to be in my daughter's life, but with you, I want absolutely nothing to do with you. And I was like, what? And then eventually, a couple days later, he said we could be friends. And I was like, no, I think it took me a couple days later after that. I was like, no, I can't do that because I loved you. I can't just be in love with you and then flip a switch like you did and just be friends. Like, I need space. And I was like, I do need space, but if, you know, like, for our daughter, I need help lifting heavy stuff because when I lift heavy stuff, it hurts. I can't do it. And he was like, oh no, you got that. So I called him a jerk, and he turned around and told me that he'd rather my daughter be dead than live with me. He said, go ahead and kill her, because if she's going to be living with you, I'd rather her be dead. And I was like, you really want me to kill her? He said, yeah, that's what I said. So I just separated myself from him. I blocked him off of all social media, but I left him on text messages because I don't know, like, even after that, I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm still gonna leave my text messages open for him. And I remember crying every single day from the moment I found out I was pregnant until like halfway through my second trimester, every single day, because of him. And he told me that, I think, like in the middle of my first trimester, but I remember I was crying so hard, and I thought it was because I was emotional because of the hormones or whatever, but I was hurt. I was very hurt. And eventually I remember really reaching back out to my mom and really connecting with her. And this time, when I connected with her, I told her, I said, I now have a kid coming in. I can't live in sin no more. I need to do right by God, not only for me but for her too. I don't want to bring a child in this awful world cursed because I was living in sin. So that's when I opened up my Bible. I started listening to the Bible, and I made sure that it was loud enough for her to hear me in her womb, I guess. And I remember thinking, like, well, this is probably not doing anything, but I don't care. I'm gonna listen to the Bible. And I remember finally starting to celebrate Sabbath, and I still had to work, and I asked my boss, I said, can I please at least have Saturdays off? And she wouldn't do it. So I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb as soon as it was sunset on Fridays, all the way up to Saturday sunset. I did not get on my phone at all. I didn't do anything that was worldly. Yes, while I was at work, I had to talk to people. I had to work, and I had to, but I still tried not to complain, and I tried to stay in the Lord, and I did the best I could while I was working. And I stayed in God. And then eventually her father hit me up and contacted me, and out of nowhere said, how are you doing? I remember all of my anger came back, and I thought I forgave him, but when I read that message, I was so angry, because I was like, how dare you? The last thing you said to me was to kill my baby, and you go ghost on me for like 3 months, and you ask me how am I doing? No apology at all. And I remember I sent that message to him, and I was so upset. I said, how dare you? How dare you? And then I almost fell for it. I almost gave in, and I started asking all of these people that I worked with, what should I do? People who were not on the spiritual level with God that I wanted to be on. So obviously they're telling me things that are like, block him, and don't forgive him. He told you to kill the baby. Don't fall back for him. Don't do any of that. And put him on child support and all this stuff, all these hateful things they were telling me. And finally I was like, what am I doing? I need to forgive him. I need to ask God what to do, and I need to ask my mom, because my mom was close to God. She would have given me the best godly answer that I could have gotten. And everybody else was telling me to block him. My mom told me to forgive him. Tell him you forgive him. Allow him in your daughter's life if he wants to be. But, just forgive him. And literally in the middle of me and him arguing over text, I just said, you know what, I forgive you. It's fine. I'm doing okay. And I was still struggling with my anger with him because he would be like, tell me when you have appointments. And I was like, why? You're not going to pay for them. You already threw in my face. You're not going to help me financially at all while I'm pregnant. But you claim you're going to help when she's born. At the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. And I was so upset. And I was still trying to be upset. But I was still also trying to get closer to God. So the closer I got to God, the less I argued with him. He would send me a text and I would just, good. He would be like, how are you? Good. I'm not trying to have a conversation with you. I'm going to just answer your text message. Good. Okay. And then the stuff that was on me was being a people pleaser and wanting attention from people. And it was so hard for me to always say no to people. And it was so hard for me to lose a friend. And the closer I got into God, losing a friend, if it was for the right reasons, I didn't care. A dream that I had just posted, I can't remember if I said it in this dream, but there was a girl who was crying. And I know her in real life, and she was a really good friend of mine. And I remember when she left my job, and it was like God literally snatched her out of my life. And I remember texting her and being like, you just up and quit? The old me would have texted her, would have Snapchatted her, would have tried to find her some other way, would have asked one of her friends that we worked with that I knew, they knew each other personally, a lot. They would see each other on me. Ask them, where is she? Da da da. No, I'm closer in God. God took her out of my life. I noticed she didn't text me back. And I was like, okay. I just moved on. And then being a people pleaser, it was always hard for me to say no. And I would always just give in. Or I would say no, and if they didn't stop right away, I would just be like, you know what? Just whatever. Just keep going. And I would never forget the day I went to the grocery store, the gas station, and I left, and this guy was flirting with me. I said, no, I'm good, and I walked off. And I remember going in my car and driving off, and I just started crying so hard because that's when I realized I said no to someone. And yeah, you would think, well, he's a complete stranger. Obviously, you would say no to him. I've actually given a complete stranger my number before. I've let a complete stranger come over my house before because I couldn't say no. And praise God, now I can. Now I can say no, which protects not only me, but it also protects my daughter. And I remember crying so hard. I was like, thank you, Jesus. I said no. And then I was like, well, that was a stranger. It is easier to say no to a stranger. So I go into late daughter. I texted her dad and I said, hey, yeah, I'm in labor, but please don't come because I can only have one visitor, and the visitor that I want is my mom. He showed up anyways. And so I was thinking to myself, yeah, if he wants to come in and see his daughter be born, fine, whatever. He's already here. No, the reason why he showed up is because he wanted to sign the birth certificate. I started screaming at him and I told him to leave. I just kept on saying, I said, leave now. The old me would have sat there and had that conversation with him about the birth certificate, and then would have said to him, do you want to be here for your child's birth? And would have tried to keep him there. Mind you, I was in the middle of pushing. The nurse is literally telling me, okay, here's a contraction, push. And I could have given in. And a lot of times I've given in because I was in that pain, because I was in some sort of issue and I was busy, and I was like, you know what, fine, just do whatever. No, I sat there and I put my foot down and I said, no, get out. And then When the contraction was over, I told the nurse, I said, please make sure that he leaves. The person I want here is my mom. And I remember thinking, that people pleaser that I used to be is gone, because I am getting closer and closer with God. And my thanks is to the Lord. I am so grateful for everything God has given me. And there was no way, after everything that I have been through, after all of these burdens that were on my back has fallen off, I am not going back. I'm happy and I praise God. I'm free and I am living in Christ, our God. I'm not going to allow the devil to pull me back. I am not going to allow myself to pull myself back. I'm not going to allow somebody else to pull me back. I am happy because I am living with God, for God. I pray that my testimony and my life story helps someone out there, because I know it has when I talk to people in person, because I'm such an open book and it's just very easy for me to tell people this stuff in person. But honestly, it's been very hard for me to make this video because I don't see your guys' faces and I don't know what you guys are thinking. And God actually told me to make this video about 2 days ago. And it was so hard for me because I was like, I don't know what to say. I'm scared. I don't want to say something that's going to make someone, like, I don't know. I don't know. And then that's when it hit me, like, I trust God, and God told me to make a video about my testimony. So I believe and I trust that the Lord will help me to say what I need to say and not to, say something I don't need to say that will be wrong or something like that. And I praise God, because that is one thing that I've always had since I was a girl. Because I was a little girl. Even though I didn't fully 100% believe in God, I always had faith. I have never blasphemed the Lord. I've never 100% said, oh, God's not real. I've always trusted in God. I've always had faith in God. And the reason why is because even since I was a little girl, I always told myself, if God created this universe, who am I to not have faith in Him? So, God bless everyone, and thank you for listening. Bye.